to another edition of Coach's Corner. Really starting to like this format with the two of us.
Yeah, it works out really well.
Kind of a conversational interview type scenario.
Definitely.
This is one of our regular ones, if you will, and it was actually one that we originally shot with just you in front of the green screen, called A Day Late and a Question Short. And it was when we were first messing with the green screen, and obviously you've seen that we've decided to nix that part of things because it's easier to produce. Cool thing is we get to reshoot it today with both of us doing it. So this is all about the questioning process, and there's nobody better that I've ever met than this guy involving questions.
Well,
and
thank you.
We'll get to it in the next segment called Questions Rule the World, but any opening remarks?
Yeah, I think a lot of salespeople get so caught up in giving presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And I always ask this question when I'm with a large group. I said, hey, show of hands, how many of you absolutely love sitting through a 30-minute sales presentation? And no hand goes up. And my next question is, well, why do you do it? Talking is what we call show up and throw up. Mm-hmm. You're not learning anything, and you're out of control, literally, because all they have to do is hear everything you got to say and say, well, that's really good. Let me think about it, come back, another time. Or, gosh, that really doesn't fit us. Thank you so much for telling me, though. In the terms of an old show that used to be on, I Love Lucy, and Ricky Ricardo was her husband, he would always ask her when she kind of messed up, was, Lucy, you got a lot of splaining to do. Well, splaining never gets it done. So it's really about questions.
Questions rule the world. That's definitely in the top 5 of your Ken Taylorisms or your favorite sayings.
Absolutely.
Quickly, how did you come up with that and that specific term? But more importantly, what do you really mean by that?
Well, I have to go back to my beginning in sales because I was a football coach, I was a track coach, high school athletic director. What I didn't realize when I did all those things, I was in sales.
Right.
Because I was having to convince irate parents why their son wasn't starting. I had to convince parents why their son or daughter got cut from the tennis team on tryouts, and even though they had taken 10 years of tennis lessons. So I was selling then, but I have to relate a quick story. When I went to work for General Electric Mortgage Insurance Corporation, it was my first sales job. And my first sales call was in Hickory, North Carolina. And I was waiting to go in, and I was, God, what do I do? And this is called being an unconscious competent.
Right.
I had no idea what I was doing. And I said, well, if I just ask questions, I won't have to do anything. So I wrote out my questions ahead of time of everything I wanted to ask. Went in.
The legend was born.
Yeah, went into the head of lending, and I asked about what they were doing, what kind of business they were doing, what were some of the obstacles they were facing. How could I be of assistance in some way? It was just a pretty neat conversation. But I'll never forget what the vice president of lending said afterward. He said, I just have to tell you, this might be the best sales call I've ever been a part of. And I said, really, why is that? He said, well, most of these guys come in here, they just talk. You asked me questions about what was important to me.
Right.
He said, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. And from that, a legend was born. I'm just kidding. It ingrained in me at that point, well, the better my questions, the better my opportunities. And lo and behold, that very first year in General Electric Mortgage Insurance Corporation, I had the highest increase in market share in the entire nation, and actually won an award for kind of the Rookie of the Year with over 400 field people. So that gave me immediate feedback of why questions were so important. And to this day, I still believe that. The worst thing you can do is talk too much on a sales call.
Good thing is, I have another question for him on the other side of this break. Okay, so it's not enough to just ask questions. There is actually a question that you need to ask yourself, and that is, do I have enough information? And before you actually get into that, I want to set a little example. We did a regional boot camp outside of Los Angeles in Whittier. We've actually done a couple there, but the first one we did in 2015, hosted by Chip Zimmer. It was at Commercial Van Interiors. We had about 24 people there, and somebody from some industry, just a driver, just happened to pull up to the upfitter and came over. We were doing it in a garage, and we had the garage doors up, and was just trying to find somebody to talk to about the upfit, and had a little bit of an issue, and walked right into to the wolf pack, basically, of commercial sales guys. And Ken took the opportunity to do the questioning process, and one of the questions that he asked, and of course, going through the process, but the question that kind of was the pivot point was, when you're working with a dealership, what is one of the things that you're looking for that they provide? And he said one word: service. And 90% of the room kind of stopped and really didn't go beyond there. And what they probably would have done was started the sales process of selling the service department.
Right.
Ken, on the other hand, went your typical route of, do I have enough information? And at that point you didn't. So kind of elaborate on just the whole concept in general, not specifically that story of, do I have enough information?
Absolutely. Most salespeople are very anxious. So someone gives us an answer, service, and oh great, let me tell you about our service.
Right.
That's the worst thing you can do. That's why I ask myself an internal question: do I have enough information? And the answer 90% of the time is no, I don't.
Right.
So what do I need? Well, give us your specific definition of good service. Another question might be, that's great. So can you kind of highlight in order the things about service that are most important to you? Number one, number two, number three. Then they start breaking things down. For instance, that person might have said, well, gosh, getting my truck in and out quickly. And even when they say that, I still ask myself a question: do I have enough information?
Right.
And the answer is no. By quickly, what do you mean? And other questions. So what happens when it's a major problem, such as a blown engine? Or do your expectations change? Well, oh yeah, we know that'll take longer.
Right.
So be detailed in your question, and it's amazing what happens. We've uncovered things that you never would imagine you uncovered. I was on one sales call, Will, when they said service. I said, what do you mean by good service? And he said, well, someone getting back to me quickly. So that was the most important thing to him. Not
communication,
get my truck back quickly, but just communicate with me on
right.
a regular basis and quickly. The big mistake I see in service with commercial sales consultants, if something bad is going on, they don't call the customer right back. They want to try to fix it first. No, call the customer immediately. Hey, here's what's happening. Want to keep you in the loop. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're going to fix it. That's going to give you so much credibility.
Right.
So ask yourself that internal question: do I have enough information?
And it can apply to virtually anything.
Anything. They might say, if I'm, for instance, let's say I'm a Ford dealership, but they only buy Chevy. Then you're thinking, oh, okay, great, that's over. Well, no. Do I have enough information? No. Well, great. Could you share with me some of the things you like most about Chevrolet or the Chevrolet product? Now I can get more detailed information. And sometimes we can turn that around, because typically they're not going to know my product versus theirs, and I might have some advantages.
Right.
So it can take a lot of turns, but please start asking yourself that internal question: do I have enough information?
And it takes a little bit longer in the short term, but it sets you up for a much better long-term relationship. So go ahead and take that next step of, do I have enough information?
Yeah. See, old Fram oil filter commercial.
Mm-hmm.
You can pay me now,
Yeah, that's what I
or
was
you can
thinking
pay me later, and later is always more expensive.
Yeah. All right, part 3. This is another one of your Ken Taylorisms. It's not quite as well known to a lot of people, but we're going to touch on it a lot today. And that is tuning in to the prospect's or customer's favorite radio station, WIIFM, which means...
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? This is kind of all of this. Do I have enough information? Am I asking enough questions? Am I asking the right questions? That is leading you to giving them that answer of what is in it for them. Go ahead and talk about that.
Absolutely. You can tell them what's important to you. Hey, we have a great service department. We give trucks in and out. We have a loaner program. That's
Changing
like throwing bait out and hoping someone's going to snatch something, and that's not what I want. I want to be very, very specific in all the information that I get and the information that I receive. So I'm assuming what's in it for them. Well, they want their truck back quickly. They want a loaner, and all that's good, and it is important. It's probably some of what they do want.
To give you a radio analogy, that would be like listening to 10 minutes or so of your favorite songs and then having nothing but personal injury lawyer commercials for the next
Absolutely.
half an hour.
There you go. So I'm tuned in to what they're telling me, and when I hit a hot spot, then I'm definitely tuned in, and those questions increase. What's important to them ultimately is what's going to make the sale for me. So when we say WIIFM, what's in it for me, we're talking obviously about the prospect and where they hurt. And that's a term I use often. I don't say it to them. Where does it hurt?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
But think about it. My job, if I'm a true sales guy, my real job is to take away the hurt, to take away the pain. In other words, to take away the problems. So here's a question I love to ask along that lines of the what's in it for me. Mr. Prospect, when you're working with a dealership, whether it's your current dealership, us, or anyone for that matter, what are the most important things you're looking for out of that relationship? And stop. Instead of you telling them everything that you want them to know about your dealership, I'm going to let them tell me what's in it for them.
And that's where the service answer came in from the previous segment.
Absolutely.
That was, yeah.
And because that's the question I asked.
Right.
And it's amazing what they tell you. It's absolutely amazing. And it's amazing what they don't say. I once saw a cartoon. Well, it was Calvin and Hobbes. It was a little boy and his imaginary tiger. And Calvin.
I know where you're going with this one.
What?
I know where you're going with this.
Calvin was watching TV, and suddenly he runs into his mom and dad. Says, "Mom and Dad, I just saw something on television that I didn't know existed, but I have to have."
Right.
And it's amazing what people don't know and about what's in it for them that they should know. Here's a question I ask often. I said, "Hey, are you ever too busy to bring a vehicle in for service?" And the 100% answer to that question, and that's why I ask it, never ask a question unless you know the answer. I know what the answer is going to be. Well, yeah, that happens. Really? Now, the average salesperson would say, well, let me tell you what we do to solve that. No. Instead, I'm going to ask, well, so what do you do? Well, we have to wait, and we have to get 2 drivers out, and then he's got to wait for the other guy, or he's got to wait for a courtesy van, and they're off the road. I said, well, so how does that affect your bottom line? See, again, more questions.
Right.
We want to jump in and sell too soon. Well, gosh, we're probably losing money. So how much does it cost you on average when one of your vehicles is down for a day? And what would that amount to for that day? And then they all tell me $1,200, $1,500, $2,000. Now I'm getting to the root of the problem. I just magnified their problem, and in reality, I didn't magnify it.
No.
They did.
Just brought it to light.
And now I can offer a solution. Would it be helpful if we brought a vehicle to you, gave you a loaner for the day, might not be exactly what you need, but it's going to be close, take your vehicle, work on it, and bring it back to you? And the answer I always get, we don't say that, by the way, unless we can do it. The answer I always get is, wow, you guys do that? I just created the wow factor.
Bingo.
So that's an example of what's in it for them that they didn't even know they could get. And that's why it's so important that you learn what they need, even sometimes when they don't know they need it because they don't know it's available.
Hopefully, all of this gives you enough questions to not be a day late and a question short. Thanks for joining us for the latest edition of Coach's Corner.